Hello and welcome back to Jehan's Baithak. I'm your host Didi, and joining me today once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about Jehan Darula's weekend in F2 and obviously the rest of what happened in Formula 2. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready your opinions, and dive right into the conversation. What what a roller coaster Sunday for all the Indian fans, racing fans out there who are rooting for Jehan Darula. Obviously, I can tell you my story. I couldn't catch the sprint race on Sunday. It was a disappointing Friday qualifying. Both the Premas, not just Jehan, both the Premas couldn't make it in the top 10. And I was like, okay, what the. And then Saturday, Jehan didn't really make an impact, on during the sprint race. He did make up a few places, but it wasn't, a huge impact. Unlike some of the other weekends that he has had during the sprint race. And then I wake up on Sunday morning, barely before the F1 race. I go up on Twitter and I see. No, I don't go up on Twitter. I go on to the FIA Formula 2 website to check the results because Twitter is too easy to get results from. So I go on to the FIA Formula and I see Jehan Darula finish second in the sprint race, and I text you and I'm like, what happened? What happened? How did Jehan go from P12 to P2? Tell me the story. And then you were like, oh, rain, tires and whatnot. And I was ecstatic. I went from being sad to ecstatic, and then I made the mistake of logging onto Twitter an hour after and seeing that Jehan had been called in because Prema decided to dry up the track illegally or whatever. And he might get a 20-second penalty, and then an hour later he got the 20-second penalty. So I went from being sad to mad happy to being really frustrated, all in a span of about 3 to 4 hours. So yeah, definitely a roller coaster weekend there.
Yeah,
How was
absolutely.
it for you?
It was weird, to be honest, because I I wasn't watching the race, like both the races properly, because my cousins are over. So I was watching, like I had the stream on and I had the live timing on, but I was not really watching it live. But obviously I was, following it through commentary and all that. But to read that Jehan is P2, running P2 was fun, like was very, it felt very good. It felt very good. And then to read that Jehan has been promoted to P1 because Richard
Yeah,
Vashour,
that too. I forgot about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, exactly.
because Richard Vashour did Sebastian Vettel and did not have
Yeah.
enough fuel in his car on the cool down lap. So that was the best moment of my weekend. But then all of a sudden it went all crashing down, and it was the first weekend that Jehan did not score any points. So thankfully, well, he stayed in P4 in the championship and did not, like, he lost some points to maybe Liam Lawson or someone, but he did not lose the position.
He lost a lot of points to Logan Sargent, the man who pipped him from P3 in the championship.
Yeah,
And
well,
now
he
sits
yeah.
P2. Logan Sargent sits P2 after being handed the win by Richard Vashour and Jehan Darula with 115 points, about, I think, 39 points behind championship leader Felipe Dragovic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and just 1 point ahead of Theo Pocher. So,
Yep.
the top three are going away, and Jehan is only 5 points ahead of Enzo Fittipaldi, who is having a tremendous season in his rookie and a half season in Formula 2. He raced he did some rounds last season, and again some 10-15 points ahead of Armstrong and Hogger. But anyway, well, hopefully Jehan can recover and stay in P4, because I think getting P3 back might be a little difficult. Especially the way Prema are operating right now, because it's not just Jehan. The thing is, it's not just Jehan.
I mean, Jehan's doing a great job. He didn't lose the win because of himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Or second place.
Both Jehan and Dennis Hogger have been suffering because Prema are not doing what Prema do best, which is dominate the season. Because I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but both the Prema drivers are struggling in qualifying. They are doing great in the alternate strategy in the feature race, but qualifying is still a big mystery for them.
Yeah, my next point is just I've written down why Prema why, and I don't want to shout into the microphone, but why Prema why? Why are you doing what you're doing? It's been the way Prema, not just their qualifying pace, but the way Prema have been going around with qualifying has been a mystery on a few weekends. Yes, feature race strategy usually works out for them, and they can make up a lot of places, at least with Jehan. But sprint race, they have good race pace, but sprint race is also a hit and a miss for the most parts. So the consistency is clearly not there. And F2, IndyCar, F3, all the junior series, and not IndyCar, but like all junior series and IndyCar is one with consistency, and we know that. The only reason Felipe Dragovic is still up there is because of the consistent races as he's had so far, and how consistently he's been able to put himself in the top 3, 4, 5. And that is what Logan Sargent has essentially done over the last few weekends. He didn't have a great start to the season, but he's picking up the pieces and he's building a season. And if he continues to do so, I hate to say this, 1 week after what I said last week, but Bruno Michel might just be right. Logan Sargent might just be mounting a title challenge, although he's still quite far away from it, even though 40 points doesn't seem like a lot in F2. He's still quite far from it, given that Felipe Dragovic has a great car underneath him. He's got the pace and everything, and he's had a great season so far. But yeah, I mean, why? Just why Prema? Why?
I mean, you remember when Jehan was announced with Prema, everyone was done with the season already. Win it or be P2, because we know that Prema would be like both the Prema cars would be in the top 3. They'll win the championship. They'll win the constructors championship, the team's championship, sorry, and then it'll be all fun and games for Prema from the get-go. But somehow they have turned it around for themselves and went in the completely opposite direction. And yeah, I mean,
but somehow
there's no coming back from here.
Sorry, go ahead.
Like they can hope for they can do their best and minimize the damage and whatnot, but there's no way back from here.
Yeah, now Logan Sargent, it's been said that if Daniel Ricciardo leaves, Logan Sargent might get a Williams seat, and Oscar Piastri, like you said, in the F1 podcast, might get a McLaren seat. Now, another question is, if Logan Sargent does end up winning or gets really close to, winning the championship, do Williams promote their own driver, or do they have Alpine? Do they take Alpine's junior driver? Because having Logan Sargent in F1 will be a big dub for Williams. Not just their junior academy, but from not a big dub, but like quite a good win. Just from a PR standpoint, they will be the first one to have an American driver on the grid. It won't be McLaren, so that is another aspect to it. Obviously, with Oscar Piastri going to Williams, they will be getting some money from Alpine. It's not going to be let me put your driver in the seat and let him have a season in F1. But again, at the same time, it seems like Logan Sargent can wait another season before getting that Williams seat. So even getting Oscar Piastri in that seat wouldn't be a huge blow to his F1 hopes, as long as he can keep up his performances in F2.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really do hope that Logan Sargent doesn't win the championship and comes in P2. No. Hear me out. Because I want him to do another season in Formula 2 and then win the championship and then get into Formula 1. Because there's a very high chance that he won't get a Formula 1 seat in 2023. He's far too young. His Formula 2 season has not been that extraordinary. Like, he's no Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen or Oscar Piastri for that matter, right? And if he wins Formula 2, he won't get a Formula 1 seat. He won't get to race in Formula 2, and he'll move out.
Exactly.
And then eventually he'll have to move to IndyCar because he's an American driver. So hopefully sorry Logan if you are somehow listening to this, but please come in P2 in the championship so that you can race one like another season in Formula 2 and get a better launch into Formula 1.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, he can get a seat in 2024, which is much more likely than next year. At least from what it seems like, there can always be a proposition where even Alex Albon was linked to the McLaren seat, where both Albon and Latifi are out, and then you have
Yeah.
two new drivers at Williams again, Oscar Piastri and Logan Sargent, which
Yeah.
is not
Well,
going to happen.
Albon's not going
I think
anywhere.
Williams has made that clear.
Albon's not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but just for argument's sake, but and I've said this. What I'm going to say next, I've said this every podcast, and that is the even more crazier thing is somehow Jehan Darula is still the leading Red Bull Junior in the F2 Championship this year, which is just crazy to me. Filipe Dragovic is not linked with any junior driver academy. Logan Sargent, he is P2 in the championship. He's with Williams. Theo Pocher is with Alfa Romeo. And then there's Jehan Darula, who's with Red Bull. Now, there aren't any Red Bull seats available for next year, and that is pretty obvious. Yuki Tsunoda has had a similar season to Pierre Gasly, so there's no reason for, Red Bull to kick him out. Sergio Perez has already signed, and Max Verstappen is going to live there forever. So, there isn't a Red Bull seat. So, the big question is, where do I guess Yuri Vips is sort of out of the conversation for F1, but where do Liam Lawson and Jehan Darula end up after this season? Because I think it is both their third season in F2.
Well, that's an interesting point. I don't know about Liam Lawson. He might. I mean, he is a very highly rated driver, and Red Bull will find, like, if he has to leave Formula 2 for some reason, Red Bull will find a seat for him in DTM or endurance racing, and keep him as a reserve driver like they have Sebastian Buemi. But talking about Jehan, now here's where the rumor mill starts up once again. Apparently, the owner or CEO of Mumbai Falcons and Jehan's dad were spotted in the Virtuosi garage in Austria. So there might be a possibility. Now, Jehan has already said that this might be his last season, because obviously it's his third season, and nobody really stays longer than 3 or 4 seasons in Formula 2, right? Unless you.
Yeah, I mean, there is no rule that says you can't rule
race, yeah.
anymore. You can't race anymore. It's just that 3 season, 3 season is more than enough to know that there isn't a spot for you moving forward, and it's better to explore other options than to keep racing here and try to
Exactly, but we
grind
have
it out, I
seen
guess.
drivers do it, like do multiple seasons. We have seen Sean Gallel do it. We have seen Nicholas Latifi was in Formula 2 for a longer period, as far as, and currently I think Roy Nissany has been in Formula 2 for a longer period. Now, all these drivers have a huge backing behind them. That's another matter. But the point is, Jehan might still be racing in Formula 2 next season if that deal with Virtuosi goes through. Like, if that deal is done. Now, Virtuosi, I mean, they have
But-
Marino Sato with them, and I don't remember the other driver, but they don't have someone who is, someone like Liam Lawson or someone like. Yeah.
Or someone
who-
even like Joe Guan Yu.
yeah, I mean, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm just saying that we might see. Yeah. So here it is. Marino Sato and Jack Doohan. So Virtuosi have these two drivers, right? Jack Doohan might stay on. He's a good prospect for the future. But Marino Sato has been in Formula 2 for a while. He might get replaced. He's not a irreplaceable driver per se. So
But then why not continue with Prema if you want to continue in F2, because that is your best chance at winning
that's the
regardless of what
interesting
happens
part.
this season.
Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes or whatnot. We don't know, right? But I mean, again, it's just a rumor mill. It's just that these two gentlemen who are connected with, who are basically Jehan's management team, were spotted in the Virtuosi garage. So that's how the rumor mill starts.
Yeah, that is how it starts. But obviously, we want to see Jehan in F1, or if not there, then some
Yeah.
other top level series. But yeah, there isn't a Red Bull seat coming up anytime soon. And I guess if Jehan and Liam, you know, continue in F2, there isn't really a contender other than them who's gonna give them a run for their money, or the probable seat in the Red Bull Academy, because who's next? Like
Dennis Hogger.
Ayumu Iwasa is the only other one. I mean, yeah, sorry, yeah, Dennis Hogger, Liam Lawson. So like, they're still in the same pool. Nothing changes from this year going forward. If they continue in F2, they're still competing with the same pool of drivers. Because I don't think
No,
there's anyone
I mean
coming up from F3 or F4
Isaac
that
Hadjar
might
will
give
come
trouble
up,
them.
but he won't be competing with them for the seat per se because he'll need another couple of seasons. And then I think Zach Crawford or someone, yeah, I think it's Zach Crawford, right? So he is having a good season. He might come
Jack
up
Crawford, yeah.
to Formula 2. But then again, he's substantially younger than these drivers and in a different league, in a different internal league per se. So yeah, let's see how that goes.
Yeah, that is exactly the point I was trying to make. So it's not the worst decision. It's just that the expectations were so high going into this year that this feels like a loss
Yeah.
more than more than anything else. But we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what AlphaTauri also do, because Pierre Gasly has signed a 1-year deal, but is there really, obviously some drivers, even Nico Hülkenberg stayed in F1 for the longest time without having a race winning car. So is that a career that Pierre Gasly wants to build in F1? Um, those are just questions for them to answer. We have seen drivers choose F1 over other things, and we have seen some drivers, leave F1 and go on to not not necessarily greener, but a more competitive series and have fun. Marcus
Yep.
Ericsson, Pascal Wehrlein, and the likes. So it's a very personal question, and the answer to that will vary from driver to driver. But we'll see what happens. Before we wrap up this podcast, just some results from F3. Obviously, like we talked about, Jack Crawford, another Red Bull Junior, won the sprint race, and another Red Bull Junior, Isaac Hadjar, won the feature race. No big issues there. Victor Martins, who is not a Red Bull Junior, I believe, leads the championship by 1 point ahead of second place Isaac Hadjar, and ahead of Arthur Leclerc, who's another 6 points behind. Now, Bruno Michel should really promote this championship fight, which is actually really close, instead of the F2 one. But nonetheless, obviously catching F3 races is almost impossible out here. But if you're somewhere in Asia, or in Europe, it must. I would definitely encourage you to watch the F2 and F3 races. They're so much more fun. Well, Austria is debatable, but they're usually more fun, and there's so much action. It's hard to follow. But yeah, that's all from my side. Without anything else from
Yeah, but
you
I
before
just
we
wanted to
close
mention
this podcast.
an ex Formula 1 driver who was racing in Formula 2 this weekend in place of Ralph Boschung, Roberto Meri, who raced in Formula 1 in 2015 or 16, if I'm not wrong, for Manor, just one season. And his last Formula 2 outing was back in 2018, so 4 years prior to his one-off outing this weekend, and he scored a podium. He was one of those drivers on the feature race who started on the slick tires as opposed to the leaders who started on the wets, and he was racing Jehan Daruwala throughout the race. He took second from Jehan, and he was second when the checkered flag fell, but he had a 5-second penalty for the track limits infraction, which, if you saw the feature race, like, they were being thrown out like candies, right? So he had that penalty. But then, of course, Richard Verschoor and Jehan Daruwala got their penalties and disqualification. So Roberto Meri fell down to fourth with his penalty and then came back to third. It was a brilliant weekend for him, coming back
Well-
into Formula 2 after 4 seasons. in between he did some sports car racing and never a single seater race. And sports car racing also, like, no DTMs or no BTCCs or anything like that, regional races or whatever. But yeah, a great weekend for him.
Clearly, just like how Juan Pablo Montoya came back in at the GMR Grand Prix, and how what's his name? God, how can I forget? Hilo Castroneves came back last year for the Indy 500,
Every
and how
year.
Tony Kanaan comes back for the Indy 500 every year. Some people are just good racers. You can't really rate them or compare them, even though they don't have a F1 seat. Blah blah blah. Enough. This is it for this week's podcast. We have had our fun for over an hour now, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.